Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library, Chapter 20. Losers. That's what Charles Chiltington thought about the sentimental saps like Kyle Keeley. A damsel in distress starts screaming, and he forgets all about winning the game to go rescue her? What a pathetic loser. Unless, of course, Haley Daly was screaming because she had already found the alternate exit. That made Charles laugh. It was impossible. Although quite pretty, Haley Daly, the princess of the 7th grade, was a total airhead. There was no way a dumb girl like her could have outsmarted Charles Chiltington. It was time to play his hunch. Twice already, the head librarian, Dr. Zinchenko, had said, "The library staff is here to help you find whatever it is you are looking for." She said it once when they were just about to enter the library, again when she was reading the laundry list of rules. Well, what Charles was looking for was a way out of the building that wasn't the front door and wouldn't set off any alarms. That was why he kept coming back to the library with the gurgling fountain. Why he kept studying the display case labeled Staff Picks, our most memorable reads. "The staff is here to help," he muttered. "These are staff picks. Ipso facto. This has to be some sort of enormous clue." Inside the sealed bookcase, Charles saw 12 book covers. One for each of the 12-year-old players? He wondered. The display items weren't actual books. They were a covered art mounted on bookside foam core. 3 covers were lined up on each of the case's 4 shelves. Since they weren't actual books with spines, none of the covers included their call numbers. Charles focused on the 3 books lined up on the bottom row. Hoosier Hospitality was on the left. In the Pocket, Johnny Unitas and Me was in the middle. The Dinner Party was on the right. Charles decided to concentrate on the Johnny Unitas title. He moved into the rotunda and did a quick card catalog search on one of the desktop computers. When he typed "In the Pocket," a matching cover image popped up, but still no call number. In the spot where the identifier should have been, there was instead a censor's thick black box with the words "ID temporarily removed from system." Scrolling further down the screen, Charles came across a rather unusual annotation. "You didn't really think we'd make it that easy, did you?" Charles grinned. The computer was telling him that he was on the right track. He glanced up from the desk. The children's room was directly in front of him. The book about Johnny Unitas, with its cartoony cover depicting a football player wearing a number 19 jersey and dropping back to launch a pass, was most likely a children's book. Of course, it was also a sports biography. So it would be shelved with sports books, biographies, or would it be shelved with children's books? Charles went back to the computerized card catalog. He read the book's description. Billy wants to be a great quarterback like his hero, Johnny Unitas, but his coach is worried he'll get hurt. It sounded like fiction, a made-up story. It had to be in the children's room. As Charles crossed the slick marble floor, something else struck him. This was like Husker Du, a memory game he had played when he was in kindergarten. He was on a hunt to find a hidden match for the football book cover he'd just memorized. This was, in short, another memory game. That was why the Staff Picks display had been subtitled Our Most Memorable Reads. "Clever, Lemoncello," he mumbled. "Very clever indeed." Charles entered the children's department. It didn't take him very long to find the book, because In the Pocket was propped up on a miniature stand on the top of a shelf. "Found it," Charles proclaimed. Then, savoring the moment, he picked up the book and read the title out loud. "In the Pocket, Johnny Unitas and Me." All of a sudden, a row of animatronic geese tucked into a corner of the room started honking and singing. "They call him Mr. Touchdown. Yes, they call him Mr. T." The squawking birds startled Charles so much he dropped the book. When he did, a 4x4 card fluttered out from behind the cover. Charles bent down to pick it up. Printed on the card was a black and white silhouette. A quarterback wearing the number 19 jersey, just like Johnny Unitas, was arching his back his arm to throw a pass. Charles grinned. He was definitely on the right track. He tucked the silhouette card into his pocket and hurried back to the library to memorize more book covers. Chapter 21. "Ouch! I'm stuck! Help!" Haley Daly's cries sailed up the staircase as Kyle led the charge down the steps into the stacks. "So, what exactly are the stacks?" asked Akimi, 3 steps behind Kyle. "It's where the library stores its collection of research material," said Sierra, who was 2 stairs behind Akimi. The three of them reached the basement. It was filled with tidy rows of floor-to-ceiling shelving units. Help! Haley sounded like she was on the far side of the room, behind the walls of metal storage racks crowded with boxes, books, and bins. What is all this stuff? Said Kyle, looking for a passageway, trying to figure out how to get wherever Haley was. Mostly rare books and documents you can't check out, said Sierra, but if you fill out a call slip, you can use this material up in the reading room. With a whir and a whoosh of its electric motor, a shiny robot the color of the stormtroopers in Star Wars scooted across an intersection between bookshelves. It moved on tank treads and had what looked like a shopping cart attached to its front. Let's follow that robot, said Kyle. It might know the fastest way to reach Haley. The trio dashed up a narrow pathway to where they saw the robot extending its quadruple-jointed mechanical arm to pluck a flat metal box out of a slide-in compartment. The box had been stored in a section of shelving with a flashing LCD that read, Magazines and Periodicals, 1930s. Somebody upstairs wants an old magazine, said Akemi. They're probably researching the Gold Leaf Bank building, said Sierra. I think it was built in the 1930s. Help! Screamed Haley. I'm stuck. Hang on, shouted Kyle. We're coming. Well, hurry already. This way, said Kyle. They scampered up another aisle, turned right, and saw Haley, her hand jammed through a horizontal slot near the top of the basement wall. To reach it, she had to stand on an elevated treadmill, maybe 30 feet long. Since the thing was rolling, Haley was jogging in place so she wouldn't fall on her face. The high-tech conveyor belt was actually a series of rollers. 10 robot carts, staggered so no two were directly across each other, were lined up on either side. I think a books, said Sierra. That laser beam near Haley's ankles probably scans a book conveyor belt, which had 10 sorting trays to shove it into. You guys, screamed Haley, hurry up and rescue me. Kyle stepped back. He tried to assess the situation. What a slot you're getting to? The bottom of the stupid book drop, said Haley, trotting on the treadmill. I saw it on the floor plan. People can walk up to it on the sidewalk and return their books. I figured it had to leave down here. Smart move, said Kyle. You could crawl through the slot and escape. Yeah, if you were the size of a book, Akemi said sarcastically. Not that far, said he. The minute stepped on it, started moving. Kyle said, but probably would have evaded a book. Then Akemi starts up. Clever, said Kyle. Plus it gives our game its first booby trap. Well, the game's fun. The boobies and the trap, said Haley. Kyle turned to Sierra. We need a belt so Haley can yank her hand out falling on her butt or cracking on her skull. Have you read a book out or a rolling checkout belt in the grocery store or something? No, Sierra, not really. How about one of the hero's flips an emergency shutoff switch, said Akemi, because I do know if I found one. Akemi was standing next to a wall-mounted switch box. She flicked it down, and the conveyor belt slowed to a stop. Ta-da! Another chapter for my amazingly awesome autobiography, if I ever write one. Haley yanked her hand out of the book return slot. It sort of popped when it finally sprang free. She collapsed to her knees on the frozen treadmill. My hand feels flatter than a pancake, she moaned. Are you hurt? Asked Kyle. Maybe we should tell the security guys that... What? That I have a boo-boo and I need to go home? Forget it, Kyle Keeley. You're not going to beat me that easily. No, I'm not trying to. Haley showed him the palm of her hand. Save it, Keeley. She crawled off the conveyor belt. One way or another, I'm going to win this game. I just hope starring in Mr. Lemoncello's commercials earns me some decent money. She hobbled around the bookshelves toward the staircase up to the reading room. When she was gone, Akemi raised her hand. Question. Yeah, said Kyle. How come the guys inside the control room didn't flip a switch to shut down the book sorter when they saw Haley doing her cardio cha-cha-cha on it? Kyle shrugged. I don't know. Maybe they weren't watching. Actually, said Sierra, pointing to a square tile on the floor near the book sorter, I think they were. Kyle looked down. The tile was glowing like one of the tablet computer screens upstairs in the rotunda. Kyle read the words zipping across the illuminated square. Congratulations, he read out loud. For helping Haley and being a sport, you've earned a much more than a good report. The tile popped open. Inside a small compartment was a rolled-up tube of paper with a yellow card clipped to the end. Huh? Said Akemi. I guess somebody was watching. Kyle pulled the yellow card off the paper tube. It smelled like lemons. "What does it say?" asked Sierra. Kyle flipped the card over so Sierra and Akimi could see what was printed on it. "Super duper bonus clue." Chapter 22. Oh man, that was so dumb. Haley could not believe how idiotic she had been, trying to crawl out of a book return slot. Like that was going to work. She was giving herself a good talking to as she trudged up the steps to the first floor. When she entered the rotunda, she saw Charles Chiltington slipping out into the library again. Chiltington was a snake, worse, a garden slug, maybe even a leech, something oily and slimy that left a greasy trail and liked to mooch off other people's ideas. That was why Chiltington had tailed the twin library nerds, Peckelman and Fernandez, upstairs during last night's dessert hunt. Haley was smart enough to know that he was hoping to steal the book geek's ideas. Actually, Haley was a lot smarter than anybody except her teachers, and whoever scored her IQ tests knew. With certain people, mainly grown-ups and silly boys, pretending to be a dizzy princess made getting what she wanted a whole lot easier. And what she wanted right now was money. Lots of money. Her dad had been out of work for nearly a year. They'd run through all their rainy day savings. They'd had to borrow from relatives and in-laws. Boys and girls, I'm going to stop for just a moment and have you think about Haley's mom at the opening night ceremony and think about what Haley's mom was doing. Had to do with some of the food. And I want to see if you can make a connection now to what her actions were and to what we just read in this paragraph. If Haley could win this competition and become Mr. Lemoncello's spokesmodel, her family's money woes would be over, and they wouldn't have to sell their home. And once other people saw her on TV for Lemoncello's games, they'd want her for their commercials too, and movies, maybe her own sitcom, something on the Disney Channel. But for all that to happen, Haley needed a winning idea, and fast. Something better than crawl through a slot that's barely wide enough for your wrist. Maybe she should flush herself down the toilet and escape through the sewers like Charles did in that video game. She headed over to the Book Nook Cafe so she could sit down and think. She stepped into the room and checked out the snack table. There were trays of cookies, strawberries, bananas, and brownies. Sitting down to nibble on a macaroon, she studied the row of cookbooks displayed on the bookshelves lining the wall. One in particular caught her eye. Cupcakes, cookies, and pie, oh my. Because the cover looked extremely familiar, two googly-eyed sheep made out of chocolate-frosted cakes with gobs of mini marshmallows for a fleece. Haley had seen that cover before, in the lobby. It was in that glass case of memorable reads selected by the library staff. She went over to the shelf and picked up the book. When she opened the cover, she discovered two cards. One was a 4x4 piece of white cardboard with the black silhouette of a sheep on it. The second card was yellow and about the same size as a community chess card in Monopoly. Haley sniffed the card. It smelled like lemons. She grinned. For Lemoncello. On one side of the yellow card was printed Super Duper Bonus Clue. On the other was the clue. Your marvelous memory has earned you even more memories. Proceed to the Lemoncello Abilia room. Look for item number 12. Haley slid both cards into the back pocket of her jeans. Pulled out the library floor plan and found the Lemoncello Abilia room. It was up on the third floor. Making certain nobody, for example, Charles Chiltington, was following her, Haley quietly dashed up a spiral staircase to the second floor. Checking for Chiltington one more time, she tiptoed up to the third floor where she found the room labeled Lemoncello Abilia, mini museum of personally interesting and somewhat quirky junk. Haley opened the door and stepped inside. The front room was like a storage warehouse. Cardboard boxes were stacked on top of wooden crates sitting on plastic bins stuffed with papers. All the boxes, bins, and crates were numbered. She saw one labeled number 576. Guess Mr. Lemoncello never throws anything away, Haley remarked as she scanned the heaps looking for the number 12 mentioned on her bonus card. Weaving her way through the stacks and columns, Haley finally found her super-duper bonus item number 12. It was an old boot box from an Alexandriaville shoe store Haley had never heard of. Someone had taped a label on the lid. Paraphernalia, accoutrements, and doodads from Mr. Lemoncello's 12th year. Haley lifted the lid. The box was filled with all sorts of confusing knickknacks, hand-whittled prototypes for game pieces, a star-spangled red, white, and blue Humphrey button, a battered clasped envelope sealed up with tons of tape. Someone had scribbled, "First and worst idea ever," on the front of the envelope with a magic marker. There was also a felt pennant from Disneyland and a rubber-banded stack of cartoony cards for something called Wacky Packages. The card on top was Weeky's Breakfast of Chumps. Haley knew this memory box had to be an important clue. Why? She had absolutely no idea. What do you guys think? Any ideas here? Talk with your family about what you think these clues might mean. Chapter 23. Kyle flipped over his lemon-scented super-duper bonus card and read what was written on the other side. You will find the ultimate version of this board game on the second-floor balcony circling the rotunda. Huh? Said Akemi. What does that mean? I don't know. Let's roll out the paper and see. Akemi and Sierra helped Kyle anchor the edges of the scroll on the tiled floor. Okay, said Kyle. It looks like the early sketch for a board game. See the circle in the center of the other circle? That's probably where you place the spinner. You move your pieces around the 10 rooms, and he stopped. Wait a second. What do you think he's thinking, you guys? Does it have anything to do with 10 of something else we've read about yet? What? Said Akemi. Do you recognize the game? Asked Sierra. Yep, said Kyle. I played it this week with my brother Curtis. It's Mr. Lemoncello's bewilderingly baffling bibliomania. It takes place in a make-believe library. What about finding the ultimate version up on the second floor balcony? Asked Sierra. Kyle grinned. You'll see. Coming up from the basement, Kyle saw Andrew Puckelman in the middle of the rotunda reading room, opening a long metal box sitting on top of the center desk. The holographic image of Mrs. Tobin was there, smiling patiently as Puckelman pulled some kind of magic out of the box. Miguel was also near the librarian's desk, apparently waiting his turn for a consultation. That's the box we saw the robot pluck off the shelf, whispered Akemi. Kyle nodded. He motioned for the others to follow him and slipped around the circumference of the rotunda, that means the outside of a circle. Akemi and Sierra slunk after him. In the shadows on the far side of the room, they saw Haley Daly heading for the staircase they'd just come up, steps that would take her back to the basement. Kyle wondered if she had found something else to crawl through. If so, he hoped it was bigger than a mailbox. Is this the real magazine? He heard Puckelman shout at the hologram. Yes, Andrew. This concludes your librarian consultation. Next, how may I help you, Miguel? Not so fast, snapped Andrew. I'm not done. Your consultation just concluded, said Miguel. Says who? The librarian. Miguel, said the hologram of Mrs. Tobin. What is your question? Sorry, bro, I told you. She's just like Mrs. Youngins at school, snapped Miss Puckelman. All the librarians like you better than me. Yo, ease up. You'll see, Mrs. Tobin. You'll all see. I'm going to beat Miguel Fernandez big time, and when I win, I'm going to tell Mr. Lemoncello to fire you. She's a hologram, said Miguel with a laugh. You can't fire somebody who doesn't actually exist. Then I'll tell Lemoncello to pull her plug. Puckelman grabbed his magazine and stormed out of the rotunda into the library. Guess Andrew's planning on doing something with the front door, Kyle whispered to Akemi. Well, that's totally dumb. They already told us on our way in that our way out isn't that same way. Sorry, let me say that again. They already told us the way out isn't the way we came in. Maybe Andrew doesn't think Dr. Zinchenko was telling us the truth, suggested Sierra. Come on, said Kyle, leading his team toward the closest staircase up to the second floor. Glancing over his shoulder, he watched Miguel place a slip of paper on the table in front of the semi-translucent librarian. "This item has been temporarily removed from the stacks, Miguel," said Mrs. Tobin. "You will find it in a display case next to the original Wrinkle and Grimble scale model. Let me give you that location." There was a grinding sound, like when movie tickets shoot up through the slot at a box office. Miguel snatched a small square of paper that popped up from the librarian's desk and spun around. He froze the instant he saw Kyle, Akimi, and Sierra sneaking around the room behind him. Chapter 24. "Hey," said Miguel, hiding the tiny square of paper behind him. Yo, said Kyle. "What's up?" "Nothing, just, working the puzzle." "Yeah, us too." "Okay, later." Both boys thumped their fists on their chests like baseball players do. Miguel turned and ran for the staircase winding up to the second floor. "Come on, you guys," said Kyle as he took off running for a different set of steps. When Kyle, Akimi, and Sierra made it up to the balcony, they watched Miguel run up to the third floor. As soon as he disappeared into a room up there, Kyle unrolled the game sketch. "Look at the drawing, then look down at the floor," said Kyle. "They're the same," said Sierra. "Exactly. A circular room with a round desk at the center of the circle." "Awesome," said Akimi. "And there are 10 doors ringed around the balcony up here on the second floor, just like on the game board." Kyle tapped the rendering of the spinner in the right-hand corner of the game. "See how the spinner is divided into 10 different colored sections numbered 0 to 9? "It looks like the Wonder Dome," said Akimi, "when it's not doing its kaleidoscope thing or running a video that makes you think the building is hang gliding across Alaska," which totally made me feel airsick. "Well, in the game, you have to go into all 10 Dewey Decimal book rooms and answer a trivia question about a book. If you answer correctly, you slip a book into your bookshelf and move on to another part of the library. When you have 10 books, one from each room, it's basically a race to see who can exit the library first." "Okay," said Akimi, sounding pumped. "This is good. This is major." "Except one thing's missing," said Kyle. "What?" asked Sierra. "Mr. Lemoncello always works a clever backdoor shortcut into his games. For instance, in Family Frenzy, you can use the coal chute to slide into the millionaire's mansion at the end," said Akimi. "Exactly, and in that castle game, Charles snuck out through the sewers. Anyway, when my brother Curtis beat me at Bibliomania—" "You lost?" Akimi acted surprised. "It happens, occasionally, but only because Curtis used his shortcut." Kyle tapped a black square on the game diagram. "It took him straight out to the street. He beat me by one spin of the spinner." "I don't see any black squares in the floor of our rotunda," said Akimi. "Maybe," said Sierra, "for this new game, Mr. Lemoncello put the secret square someplace besides the main room." Kyle nodded. "And maybe to win this new game, we need to play the old one." "You're a genius," said Akimi. "No, my brother Curtis is the genius. I just like to play games. So do libraries even have board games?" "Sure," said Sierra. I think the library in my dad's town has them." "What department?" asked Akimi, pulling out her floor plan. "Young adult." Akimi tapped her map. "Third floor, stairs over there." "Let's go," said Kyle. But before they could take off, they heard Mr. Lemoncello's voice echoing in the rotunda. "Are you ready for your extreme challenge, Bridget?" Kyle peered over the ledge of the balcony. Bridget Wage was alone in the front of the librarian's desk, staring up at the ceiling. "Yes, sir," she said. "Are you sure?" Lemoncello boomed out of the hidden speakers. "You still have 22 hours to find the exit." "I want to go for it now, sir. Get a jump on everybody else." "Very well." Dr. Zinchenko reset the statues. The 10 holographic statues in their recessed nooks flickered off, leaving black and empty spaces. "This extreme challenge is based on a classic game of author's card game," said Mr. Lemoncello. "Here are the authors in your deck." Magically, new holographic statues appeared as Mr. Lemoncello rattled off the authors' names. Charles Dickens, Ray Handler, Edgar Allan Poe, Agatha Christie, Patricia Highsmith, Mario Puzo, Frederick Forsyth, John Carr, Dashiell Hammett, and Fyodor Dostoevsky. "Wrote Crime and Punishment," said Bridget excitedly. Indeed he did. In fact, Bridget, crime novels. Correct. However, that part, Dr. Z. we make this nothing ridiculously not qualify as a name? Simple, the libraries echo the dome. You will have Bridget to name four books written by those. How possible, he whispered. Not really, said Sierra. About to start rattling off titles when Mr. Lemoncello said. The sound of a ticking clock reverberated around the room. Okay, said Bridget down on the main floor. Agatha Christie. Murder on the Orient Express. 10 Little Indians. Death on the Mousetrap. Some British sensible shoes disappeared. Oh, Murders in the Rue Morgue. The Mask of the Red Death. The Purloined Letter and the Cask of Amontillado. Another ding. Another statue vanished. Bridget was kept going. Man, whispered Kyle, what grade is she in? College? 7th, said Akemi, just like us. Bridget Wage kept tearing through the authors. The bell kept dinging, but the clock kept ticking, too. 10 seconds, said Mr. Lemoncello. Bridget had saved the worst for last. Let's see. Dostoevsky wrote Crime and Punishment. The one about the brothers. The brothers, and then she stalled. She'd run out of gas. A buzzer sounded. I'm sorry, Bridget, said Dr. Zinchenko, but as we advised you, the extreme challenges are extremely difficult. You will be going home with lovely parting gifts. Kindly hand your library card to Clarence and thank you for playing Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's library. That settles it, muttered Kyle. I am never, ever asking for one of those extreme challenge dealios. Me neither, said Akemi. I might, said Sierra. Maybe. And then she showed Kyle and Akemi the rumpled sheet of paper where she had written down 5 book titles for all 10 authors. All right, and that concludes our time today.